Today I can share with you 7 steps I have to running your own race, and I'll share with you where I got that advice, but a little bit about me to tell you about my journey. When I was in high school, my high school counselor, Mr. Feynman, told me that going to the Air Force Academy was not really for a girl like me. Kind of resonates with what we're facing today in the world we live in. And at the tender age of 14, you kind of listen to that advice. So I saw on Mrs. Croner's desk, she handled, my maiden name was Northrop, she handled the A through L students a pageant flyer. So I snatched that up and I grabbed that and I said, well, if going to the Air Force Academy isn't for a girl like me, maybe this is for a girl like me. So I entered the Miss Teen Los Angeles pageant, and that started my pageanting career. Good, so I started my journey to become Miss America. And in 1992, it was realized when I became Miss California in 1992, went to Miss America in 1992, and was still kind of wondering, is this for girls like me? Your standard pageant girl is a little bit different than I am. And what was fascinating, and this is where my run your own race comes in. So Bob Arnhem, the CEO of the Miss California program at the time, one night on the phone said, you know what, Patricia? I know every single aspect of Carrie Lee Davis's competition. I have no idea what you're doing. Why don't you run your race and you let Carrie Lee Davis chase you? Because the way you're going right now, you are guaranteed to be at least second. Now, we're 17 days into the Miss America competition, so this advice, albeit fantastic, was a little difficult to implement at that point. So Carrie Lee Davis ended up not even making the top 5 at Miss America, but yet she completely consumed that whole experience for me. And when I was able to sit back and kind of think about it, I really started thinking, you know what? That was profound wisdom, to run your own race, let everyone else chase you. So, how many people have read Sun Tzu, The Art of War? Oh, we've got quite a few. Excellent. This is a fantastic book, and if you take away nothing else, take away the 4 things I'm going to share with you today. Here's 3 of the 4. Is knowing the other and knowing oneself in 100 battles. In 100 battles, no danger. So you know the enemy, you know who you are, you're good. Not knowing the other and knowing oneself, generally the situation we're in most in life, 1 victory for 1 loss. You got a 50%. Those are like Vegas odds on a craps table. So that's pretty good. And then finally, not knowing the other and not knowing oneself, I apologize for the typo, in every battle, certain defeat. So that is the wisdom of Sun Tzu. And we're going to talk about that as we run our race. This was one of the biggest lessons. Was I, at a very early age, knew I wanted to fly airplanes. I sat with my grandpa at LAX eating bologna sandwiches on folding chairs, and the majesty of that caught my heart, caught my attention. And it was constantly told, no, delay, delay. Well, finally, through the Miss California program, I was able to get $30,000 when I finished my year in educational scholarships. Went to flight safety, did all my flight training, and through that was able to get hired by the Air National Guard. So this was for girls like me. This is the C-130J. I took the E model, which was a Vietnam-era airplane, into the Middle East once, and then my other 5 deployments were on this brand new J model. And this is actually me landing the airplane at Point Mugu. From November 2003 to July of 2014, I deployed 6 times to the Middle East. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about that. That is where I think you really need to try and get to that point where you're not looking from side to side. You're running your own race. It doesn't matter what other people think, what other people say. You've made your decision, and you're going to move forward and step forward with confidence. All right, so my very first deployment, we'll go back to the beginning. I went to Doha. This is the Middle East, and Doha is a small country, sits there in the Persian Gulf. And we were at Al Udeid Air Base. The Air Force does its best to make you feel welcome. Welcome to Camp Andy. It was a tent city. They put it up in a very short period of time. You can kind of see the tents behind me. The one thing you'll notice, and it was really interesting, every time I come back from a deployment, as soon as you hit Greece, that was usually our first point out of country. We'd land in Greece for the first night. The color would just accost your senses. Because as you can see, and in most of the pictures you'll see, this part of the world is really one color. That's the point I'm making, is you need to multiply the things that matter to you most and what you value most. And that is what this setting does. And I truly believe that we are starting to lose that in this world. And that's why I spent 21 years of my life in the military. That meant something. I was making a difference. making a difference, one flight at a time, 100 combat sorties at a time. And even at American Airlines, I do feel like, we have a tremendous amount of power up front to make a difference in people's lives every flight I make, especially the kids that come up and the girls, and put them in my seat and give them wings and really make them feel like, hey, this is 100% for a girl like you. I would always walk by this, but the New York Air Guard managed to build the New York City skyline and the Twin Towers there right in front of their little hooch. So this was so important for me in joining myself with the power and knowing why I was away from my husband, why I was away from my kids, is because of those two white 2x2s. And I think it is so important as you run your race to always know why you're there. If you're at work every day and it's like, what am I doing here? That's not your race. So I wanted to be very respectful, put the hijab on, went to the back of the airplane, and was ready to tell them that we had their medical supplies for the UN, and I couldn't get a soul to listen to me. And I had these young ladies ask me down here if I'd ever experienced any sort of gender bias along my journey. Well, at 3 o'clock in the morning in Kerman, Iran, I experienced gender bias because no one wanted to listen to me because I was a woman. Glenn comes up, my navigator, and he says, Patricia, they want to apologize to you. They feel bad. Like, apologize? Yeah, the Farsi translator is able to kind of explain to them that you're in charge, this is your airplane, your crew, and they really feel that they have disrespected you. So they want to apologize. Well, I've never been on the receiving end of an Iranian apology, but I was kind of curious as to what it was going to be. So I put the hijab back on, went to the back of the airplane, and in the C-130 we lay out a flat gate at the bottom, and they had sitting on the ramp cookies, scones in this China coffee urn and China coffee cups. So there at about 4:30 in the morning, I am breaking scones and drinking the sweetest coffee I've ever had in my life there in Kerman, Iran. And it was just such a lesson to realize that, sometimes that backing off and not making sure everybody knows that the big cheese that you are is sometimes the best approach to get through to people. So there's a tremendous amount of perspective to be gained by looking at what's around you, looking at what other people are telling you, paying attention to your surroundings, and maybe sometimes backing off of your own agenda. Because sometimes we get so good at what we're doing that we know exactly what we need to do, what everybody wants, and sometimes that's not always the case.